Hi, I'm Esther Livingston, the Director of Internships here at Berea, and this session is how to receive credit and funding for your internship. As we get started here at the beginning, I'm going to just give you the basic parameters so that we're on the same page. If you are receiving credit for an internship, it does need to be a supervised learning experience in the workplace, and that can be in person or a virtual internship. It's related to your major and your career plans. It allows you to apply what you've been learning in your classes. And it does need to provide full-time hours. Typically, that's 8 to 10 consecutive weeks. And I want to emphasize the word consecutive. You should not take a vacation during an 8 to 10 week internship. That's too short a time. So it does have to be consecutive weeks. We want you to have time off, but do that before the internship starts or after. And so when you're starting to look for an internship, offers for less than 300 total hours are not approved. There are some options to think about. You may earn course credit, as I mentioned, with a letter grade, but it can be non-credit if you don't need the credit and it's paid. You don't need the funding because in order to get funding, you must be registered for credit. So, but anyway, if you don't need that, you don't have to do it for credit. You can just do it for experience only. And in that case, none of the rest of these steps will apply to you, but most people do want the funding or the credit, or they want it to be on their transcript. Many internships are off campus, the vast majority, but there are a few on campus if that suits you better. It can be paid or unpaid. And when we refer to a paid internship, we mean one that is being paid by the organization, not that you are getting funding from Berea. It's the organization. That's what we mean by paid or unpaid. But if it is unpaid by the employer, you can receive grant funding from Berea. So let's look at that. This is on Beyond Berea. And this is our funding page. It's under internships, students, and then as you scroll down, you'll find the funding. It gives you the information here that I've just told you. Must be have credit, no less than 300 hours, consecutive weeks, etc. And it's based on the type of internship, meaning remote or in person. And this is geographic as well, depending on the location. Of course, internships in New York are way more expensive than internships in Berea, so it has these different tiers of funding. So let's look down just and see a sample. And what we're looking at is the funding levels from last summer, 2022. And these may be adjusted slightly this year. We haven't yet, but I'm just letting you know this could possibly change a little bit. But for a moderate cost area like Lexington or Louisville, Cincinnati, you would receive a grant of $5,000 and you receive that up front. And that would mean at the end of April, assuming you get all your materials in time for us to give you a direct deposit by the end of April. And you get that, and that's to cover your housing, your transportation to and from whatever city it is, in this case, Lexington, Louisville, but it could be another moderately priced area where you might have to fly or take a bus ticket or something like that. But it's the travel to and from, your daily commuting, if you have to buy gas for your car or, public transportation passes, that sort of thing. Also your meals and personal expenses. So all of that, $5,000 in a moderate cost area is plenty. This assumes that you can get housing for about anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 a month. And sometimes you can get it for less. Obviously, if you have a roommate, it's to your advantage because you still get the same amount of money. But if you can make it, stretch the money a little bit by having a roommate, that's wonderful for you. And that's fine. When you see this says summer savings, that says $900. It is an amount that is set by financial aid later in the spring term. Every year since I've been here since 2011, it has either been $800, $900, or $1,000. So we typically just leave it at 900, and then you can know it might be a little bit more. Could potentially be less, but that's unlikely. And that's what that is. And you get that amount in August. Okay, so this grant for expenses, get that in April, and it's up to you to budget it for the whole summer. And then you get the summer savings in August. And that is to go toward any costs you might have. It doesn't go to your student account. It goes to you. It goes to your bank account. And it's for you to use for whatever type of expenses you have coming up in fall and spring terms. You can see these other cost areas. This does specify, no less than 300 total work hours, 8 to 10 weeks, in-person internship, etc. And when you look at this, you think, oh, I might want to do one in New York because I get more money. Well, that's because your housing is going to be so expensive. You really will end up with about the same amount of money. And you'll probably be scrimping a little bit to make that $7,500 work in New York. Your housing will be about $4,500. Your food will be much more expensive, and so is your transportation. Anyway, so you can look at that. You notice the asterisk about the summer savings down here. It says funds for summer savings are provided to continuing students, so you do have to be coming back, and it requires that you successfully complete your internship. And that means you've done all the requirements and you've gotten a grade of an A, B, or C. We don't consider a D in it for an internship as successful completion. So just know that those are the terms for getting the summer savings. Okay, so there are a few other options to think about. It can be local, could be in Berea or your hometown, could be wider, regional or national locations. It can be international. That's pretty rare, and there are very specific guidelines. And so you want to see the guidelines for international internships under our forms and resources on Beyond Berea. Make sure you look at that, because none of what I'm telling you today applies to international internships. Everything I'm saying today applies to domestic internships. And who can participate in an internship? All majors, all class levels, but if you're a first year, you want to think very carefully about when it is most advantageous for you. It's probably not after your first year, and there's lots of reasons for that. And employers will sometimes rule you out. You haven't declared a major yet. You haven't had very many classes. There's lots of things that make it probably better if you do it after your sophomore year, definitely after your junior year, because you get 2 that are funded. So you want to be sure you've got funding available if needed in those last 2 years, but we don't prohibit it. So, having said that, you may do an internship after your first year, but just think about it as to what would be most advantageous for you. You do have to be in good standing in order to participate in an internship, and that means that you're not on probation of any type. Let's take a look. Here are the ways that we engage with you and help you throughout this whole process. I'm going to show you Beyond Berea in a few minutes. That's our website, and it has everything that you need to know, all the forms and all the steps that I'm giving you today. There's a document or a web page that shows you all of those steps that you can go back to remind yourself. Handshake, obviously you make appointments through Handshake. You can see events there to know what employers will be on campus and if there might be something to do with career development funding or things like that. It's also where you can find a lot of internship and job postings. And this is where you will submit your requests for credit and funding. You can follow us on social media. We'll also send out things, reminders that Fifth Third Bank is here on Thursday, something like that. And then watch for our weekly update. It comes out on Monday afternoons, and we know you have to delete a lot of email, as do we. But open this one, scan through it before you delete it, because it is likely that it may have something to do with either an internship opportunity or funding that might be relevant to you. And if there's nothing relevant, then delete it. Just scan through, but don't delete it automatically without looking at it. So then your very first step, all of those things are kind of background. As you get ready to look for an internship, the first thing, of course, is to identify positions and then start to apply for them. We have a couple of sessions. If you need help with that, you need to come to the information session or watch the recorded for video before you make an appointment. So if you need help finding or creating an internship, watch this video or go to the in-person session first, and then make an appointment with us so that when we can use our time together better, because you've got all the basic information and we can look specifically at what you are looking for. Also, most of you have never applied to, professional level positions. So there is a session called Applying for Internships, and it's kind of a broad brush with resumes, interviewing, cover letters, application systems, that sort of thing. Very broad, but it's a good way to help you get started. And then, of course, you're going to need a cover letter and a resume to apply, probably. It's very unusual if you don't. And you want to get that revised and get it all polished up. And there's a lot of great content on Beyond Berea under career development, that drop-down menu. There's one specifically related to resume writing and cover letters. There's also one for interviewing. And you can come to Career Cafe on Monday nights. That's in 308 Stevenson Hall from 5 to 8 p.m. And you don't have to be there the whole time. It's just a drop-in. And they have a nice coffee bar set up. And there are labor students from career development who are trained in helping you with resumes. And you can bring in what you've got and say, I need some help. Where do I find the resources? Or would you show me what I should do with this? They're very good. So you can come to that. It's a really informal and comfortable way to get started on your resume and to update it. But once you have gotten it updated and polished it pretty well, you want to make sure that you have it reviewed, because no matter how long you look at it, there's always some little thing, but it needs to also be reviewed by someone who knows about internships. So I would recommend career development or writing resources, people who are trained in writing resumes specifically, because they're different from your regular business writing typically. Then you also want to learn and practice your interview skills. And you can do that by making an appointment with career development virtually or in person to do interview coaching. Then you also, as you are planning, knowing that I want an internship for this summer, you want to talk about that with your advisor or any possible faculty sponsors before you get too far in the process, because they do not like it if you wait until the very end and say, would you approve this? They're going to approve what? Let's back up. Tell me what you're doing. So just let them know ahead of time. I'm planning to apply for internships. And if it's your advisor, it gives them a chance to say, oh, that's great. Or, oh, don't forget that you need to take this class during the summer, something like that. Or the faculty sponsor is different from your advisor, or it could be the same person. You want to ask the person that you want to be your faculty sponsor ahead of time, give them a heads up, because they can only say yes to so many students, and you don't want to, you want to get in line. Let's put it that way. You want to get in line as soon as you can. And if you are doing an off-campus undergraduate research experience, we call them undergraduate research internships so that you can get funding if needed. But if you're doing an off-campus UGR, you have to get approval to apply for UGR. This approval form, this pre-approval form, is not approval of the experience itself. It's just the approval to apply, because you do have to have certain GPAs and that sort of thing. That form's on our website under forms, and you'll see it in a minute. Then you will receive an offer. Hopefully, you've interviewed, you've applied, you've interviewed, and someone says, we'd love to have you come and join us, maybe more than one. But when you do get the offer, you want to consider it. We're happy to talk through it if you want to do that with us. But you do want to think about it. Is it really doable for you now that you've got more information, about what they're offering in terms of the dates, the housing available, the transportation? Does it support your career plans? Are you going to be able to network, meet some people in your field? That is sometimes the question that helps you decide between two different options, which one might have better networking opportunities. And is it going to let you learn what you want to learn, expose you to the field, and help you be able to learn about it and have a good experience? And will there be sufficient guidance and supervision? And then after you've thought about all those things and you think, yep, I think this is good. I think I can do this. It'll be great. Then you can accept it verbally or in writing, either way. And if you, the next slide is about how to do that. When you accept it, you need to then tell them, my school requires that you submit the offer on this form. So we'll look at that in the next one. So you can accept it, but you might also decide it's not for me. And if that's the case, there is a way to politely and professionally decline it. And we can help you with that if you need help with that. You don't want to burn bridges, because if you're going into this field, it's very likely that, that you will come in contact with someone, there or that company again. It's very possible. So do that politely and professionally, and we can help if you need help. So getting that offer in writing, ask your supervisor to complete our offer form. I'm going to show you where that is. This is under internships, and this under students, and it's just the offer form. I'll show you where these are. And it just says, thank you for extending an internship offer to a Berea College student. You can send this whole link, just copy the URL up here and send that to your supervisor after you've accepted. Just say, my school requires that you, or asks, let's say that. Let's not say requires. Tell them we do require it. But when you're asking your new employer, your new supervisor, tell them asks, that the school asks that they submit their offer using this DocuSign form. And there's a sample of the form right here that they can look at. It's a PDF. And then here is the button to complete the DocuSign offer form. And that will come to you. Let me go back. That will come to you, and you need to look at it and make sure that they got everything right. If you talked about more than one start date or something, they could have picked up the wrong thing. So look at it, make sure it is accurate. And then it also comes to us. And after you sign it, you'll do the DocuSign. They'll get a copy. You need to keep a copy for yourself. Keep that email that has it. And then we also review it when it is automatically sent to us. So you don't have to do anything with it other than review it, sign it, and keep a copy for yourself. Everything else is automated. The supervisor gets a copy, and then my office gets a copy. And if you're an F1 student, an international student, we will forward a copy of that to Kai Anderson, because he will need that as well, but you don't have to worry about it. We will forward it. Then the next step is to complete the internship agreement. And this is an agreement between you and the college or my office. And it's very standard things like, I agree to show up on time, do the work to the best of my abilities. This is who you should contact in an emergency. Oh, I know that I have to have my own insurance. And then anyway, when you go to this, you want to listen to the recorded explanation. It's me and it's short, but it's telling you every line by line on the agreement, as you will have to initial every line. And if you have questions about anything, do ask us, okay? And then once you sign it, it'll automatically submit it to our office. But this is a requirement before you go further. After you get the offer, you sign the agreement. You can actually do the agreement before the offer comes through if you want. That doesn't matter which comes first in that case. Then now you want to go back, now that you've got that offer, you want to go back to the faculty sponsor that you spoke to earlier and say, hey, I got my offer. And you can forward it by email or have it in your hand, whatever works best with this particular faculty sponsor. Now, your faculty sponsor does have to be from the department that's granting the credit. So if you're getting CFS credit, it has to be a faculty member that teaches in CFS. And the only exception to that is occasionally when there are people on sabbatical, the very small departments, they will approve someone, a department chair will approve another faculty member from another department that's closely related. But that's pretty rare, but it is possible. Then this is the faculty sponsors. The person's going to work with you throughout the experience, and they're going to give you your grade. You turn in your assignments to them throughout. And then sometimes there's a secondary sponsor required, but that is only if there's a secondary program. For instance, EPG or the Shepherd Internship Program, or sometimes if there's a cross-disciplinary internship, like music education, there might be an education primary sponsor and then a music secondary, something like that. But those are the only times. Most of the time, we usually have maybe 5 or 6 people that have to have a secondary sponsor. Now, the process and forms, you need the next thing after you've gotten your offer, you've done the agreement. The next thing is to start working on that proposal form, and you take the offer, you're going to open up the right form, you'll take the information from your offer and plug it in. You'll notice when we look at the form that the proposal form has all the fields that are also on the offer. So you've got the information you need to start your proposal. So let's look at that. This is where it is. It's under forms. I'll scroll back up so you can see this. This is the internships page. When you see the cyan and the little owl named Puddles, you know you're in the right place. In students, you click that, and then you have all these buttons. You can click that and it'll jump to forms. Here's the proposal form, and most everyone uses this form. This is the one for undergraduate research. That's a little bit different. This is where that offer form is that we looked at. Here's the agreement. And then also you'll be able to see the timesheet that's required is right here. And this is that pre-approval form for undergraduate research that you have to get before you even apply to anything. So that's where your forms are. So let's open this in proposal form. This is the proposal form. There are some instructions at the top. The first section, very easy, your student information about the internship sites. Number 2, 3 is your pay status. Are they paying you? Sometimes they don't pay you, but they might provide other compensation, like they might provide housing or something like that. So if that's the case, just put that over here. Your start date, end date, hours per week, total hours. Again, you want to make sure that it's no less than 300. You are required to work whatever you accepted in the offer. So if they offered you a position for 10 weeks, 35 hours a week, that's 350 hours. You are required to work the 350 hours. You don't quit when you hit 300. Somehow, a couple of people last year got confused about that and thought because we didn't accept offers for any less than that they didn't have to work anymore. And it's like, no, you agreed. They gave you an offer, you accepted it and agreed to work the number of hours on the offer. So just be aware of that. I don't think most people would be confused by that, but just in case. And then are you requesting funding? You put in your course number. Every department has a 395 course, which is an internship. So like I said, it might be CFS 395, HHP 395. You just put it right in here. Then the course title is what you put in to give it's on your transcript, and it gives the person who's viewing your transcript an idea of what type of internship. Because if it was an HHP internship, that could be personal training, that could be physical therapy, that could be a variety of things. So you would want to give a short description. It does have to be under 30 characters. Then here's your faculty sponsor. You put in their information, the optional secondary, if you are in one of those programs, and then you describe the internship, the position, the duties, what you will be doing, and these fields expand. This is just a Word document, and it just expands as you type in it. And all of this information down to this point is on the offer. So you're going to be able to, except for the faculty sponsor, you'll be able to fill in everything from there. Then you should do that before you go meet with your faculty sponsor, so that, you can do as much as you can, and then they will work with you on other things, like what are your learning objectives, how you would know how it relates to your career goals, and what preparation you've had. So fill in as much as you can. They'll have you do revisions. Then 11, 12, and 13, every intern has to keep a reflective journal, and that's not a diary. It says right here, this makes connection between your experiences and your learning. So it's really not just, I did this and this and this. It's like, I did this, and this is what I observed or learned from it, or I was surprised about, or, it makes a connection. And some faculty have very specific journal prompts that they'll provide you, or journal guidelines. So do follow their instructions. But in this section right here, as you type in, like I said, it'll expand. What form will the journal take? How many entries should be made each week? How should they be submitted? When should they be submitted? Usually it's often Sunday nights, and then same thing for the paper. What's the topic? What's the format, the spacing, when's it's due? Typically, the first draft is due when you come back in August. And then occasionally a faculty will say you can decide on the topic after you start the internship. So if that's the case, you can say, I will submit a, 7-page paper, or whatever they say, with MLA format by August 1st on a topic to be determined by the 3rd week of my internship, something like that. And then also you make a presentation. And many of the departments have actual events for all of their interns to present. And I love going to those, and it's a good way to see what other people have done and what's out there. But you would put that, I will present at the EDS internship. What do they call their event? I think they call it symposium, or no, poster presentations. They may not have a date set, but it might be in September, something like that. Sometimes it's to a class, and that's okay. You could say that I'll do a presentation to another HHP class to be determined, and I will do that by midterm, something like that. Number 14, notice this says additional, and then right here it says this field may be blank. So you don't have to put anything in there. But if there is something that you want to be considered as part of your grade, and I do think of that, especially for teachers with lesson plans, those take so long to do. It takes so much of your time that you probably want that to be part of your grade. Or if you're doing graphic design of some kind, or websites, you might want the thing itself to be part of your grade, whatever that is, if it's materials you're creating. Then the faculty will tell you which percentages each of these components will have in your grade. And, journal might be 30%, paper might be 40, like something like that. The supervisor's evaluation, and the faculty member will receive a copy of the performance evaluation that we send to the supervisor. That supervisor's evaluation cannot be more than 15%. It can be less, it can be 5%, 10%, whatever, but not any more than 15. Because yes, the faculty member wants to know how you did at the job, what they thought about your performance. However, Your grade is based on what you are demonstrating you learned. You're not getting a grade for working. You're getting a grade for demonstrating what you learned while you were doing the internship. So that's why. Then we're going to ask you then to go back up to the top, look at the instructions, and it says when all revisions have made and your faculty sponsor says you're good to go ahead and go to Handshake, and you're going to have to enter some of the basic information and then just attach this proposal. So, and all of those approvals are done online right here. It says will be automatically routed by email from Handshake, and they are approved in the order shown below. First, your faculty sponsor approves. If you're an F1 student, then Kai Anderson approves. Then if you're one of those secondary sponsor people, they would approve. Then your advisor, then your department chair. So most people, it's just faculty sponsor, academic advisor, and department chair. You are required to attend the internship launch party on Thursday, April 20th at 7 o'clock in Baird Lounge. We'll send you a reminder, but this is a requirement if this is your first internship. You are required to also keep track of your time. Most people use our timesheet. Occasionally, if you're being paid perhaps by the hour, you might be clocking in and out with their time clock, and that might be able to produce a report with your total hours, and that would be okay in a case like that. We send the supervisor an evaluation to fill out. It's online. It's just a link. We send an email with a link in it. They do it online, and they're evaluating your performance. But we also send you a link via email to do the student evaluation, and you are evaluating the overall experience, your learning, the site, all of those kinds of things. And these are all required, and they must be completed or submitted back by August 4th. If you're working all the way to like August 10th or something, you have to estimate the hours that you expect to work and go ahead and submit it by August 4th. And then in terms of registration, we register you for the internship. You can't do it yourself. We register you after everything has been approved by your department. Okay, so that's the internship proposal. It also shows you that the deadline for the submitting this in Handshake and getting those online approvals is April 13th. Okay, April 13th, important date. So let us move on back. I did want to show you also where you attach the form in Handshake. So right here, I will, let's just look. You notice this path. You go to Handshake, Career Center, Experiences, Request an Experience. So let's do that. This is Handshake, and remember that path, go to Career Center, click, Experiences, click, Request an Experience. And this is what they are referring to as an internship. Under this experience type, this is where you will choose the template that you should use. There are two sets. There's a set of templates for F1 international students. Then there's a set of templates for people who are not F1 international students. So make sure you pick up the right one. There's also, let's look at those. There's the $395, $495, that's a internship from the department. By the way, yours will be a $395 unless your faculty tells you it's a $495. You don't get to choose that. A $495 is reserved for something like a capstone, and your faculty would determine whether or not your internship would qualify for that. So you're registering for a $395, most of you. If you're one of those people who does have a secondary faculty sponsor, you want to use this template. And these first three are for F1 international students that are here on F1 visas. And this is the one for UGR. So then these 3 are for the people who are not F1 visas. So we always have a few people who, are confused by that. So we want to make sure that you know. So I'm going to click this one. Then the term would be summer 2023. Come on, there we go. And the rest of this information, only put in the fields that have an asterisk by them. Okay, don't, because Handshake asks some duplicate questions and you don't have to answer those. Only the things with an asterisk. So here you can type in your employer, or if they happen to be listed, it'll pull them up, because we do have some sites that are the same every year. So if I did Kentucky Refugee Ministries, Louisville. See, that's one that's there every year, and that fills it in. Then you go on down, there's no asterisk there, so ignore them. Here you can just put in intern, because this is Handshake asking, and you don't bother with any of this. There's no asterisks. I can take that off if you want. When you get to approvers, everything else will have an asterisk, and you must complete that. You will be putting in email addresses for each one of your approvers. Even if they're the same person, you have to put it in, because it routes. They're not always the same, so it routes that way. And if you make a mistake, just a typo here, then it won't get to them, and it could potentially delay everything for you, your approval or your funding or something like that, because it may take a while before you realize, why haven't I heard something? And then you figure out, oh, I put in the wrong email address. So the academic advisor won't get it until this person approves, so it might be held up. So just be careful on each one of those that you enter. You do have to enter the internship site supervisor here, but the purpose of this is for the evaluation. They are not approving your proposal. It is just so that we will have it for the evaluation. And then you read each one of these statements, click yes. Be sure you read them though, okay? And then next page. And then eventually you will get to the point where it says request this experience and upload your proposal as an attachment, okay? So that is how you do that in Handshake. And we're getting very close to being done. Like I say, we will review that when it comes through. If it's acceptable, we'll send it right on to the first faculty member. If we have any questions, though, we'll reach out to you. Most of the time, they go right on through, but occasionally we do have questions. If when you start to upload your proposal, you get this access restricted message, that means we haven't received your offer. So go back and look, make sure, did you sign it? Did they sign it? Or call us, that would be fine too. And we can look on our end in DocuSign and see where it is, what happened, or is it still waiting for you to sign it, or is it waiting for the employer to do something? We can figure that out. But if that's what this means, if you get it, and it's possible, that we may not have, when we get those offers, we have to go into Handshake and designate that it's been submitted. So it's possible that maybe we didn't do that. It's pretty rare though. Nicole is good. So she rarely forgets anything, but it can happen. So that's what that's about. And then once those approvals are done, and by the way, you can track them in Handshake, just like you're tracking an Amazon package, to see where it is. Your primary sponsor has signed it, you're waiting on your academic advisor or the department chair or something like that. But once they're all done, then you schedule an appointment to meet with us. And we can do that virtually or in person. And at that time, we'll confirm your funding level. You probably have a pretty good idea of what it is before, based on the tiers of funding that we have and that I showed you earlier, but we'll confirm it at that time. Be prepared to just talk about your anticipated expenses in an accurate way. Okay, so if I'm going to buy a plane ticket, I looked at the Delta flights because I'm flying out of Lexington, and this is what the cost was today. We get the best deal you can for yourself, but be smart about that. If it's the kind of thing that's going to give you 3 stops between here and Atlanta, you don't want that. So just be able to look at that, know what it would be, have an idea of what your housing's going to be, or say, I'm going to be living at home or whatever. By the way, you still get a lot of money if you live at home. It's to your advantage, really. But we may just ask you those questions. And what we're trying to do is to show that your expected expenses are going to be less than or equal to the amount of funding that you will get. Now, if yours is much more, we don't we don't give you more money. We just look at what's the issue, because typically those funding levels are quite generous. So you will typically have money left over. So but we can talk through that and we'll figure it out. And then you do need to create and stick to your budget. How are you going to get to the location? What are, the housing that you've got, I assume. Normally you want something that includes utilities and Wi-Fi if possible. That is safe and secure. And read our housing guide that's under planning, internship planning on Beyond Berea, because this has some very valuable information. It also has some suggested locations or housing options in different cities. Like there's a place in New York that is called EHS. Their specialty is internship housing. New York University, there's different places. We have links on our website to those. In Lexington, the University of Kentucky has housing available. It's called Summer Conference Housing, and the link is there. But this also talks to you about scams and about leases. Don't ever sign a lease. Make sure, if you are subleasing from someone else who holds a lease, make sure that it is an official lease through the office, because if you pay the person instead of the office and they never pay the office, you'll be evicted. And that did happen to somebody. They paid the person for their 2 months in the summer. That person took the money and left, never paid the apartment building. And so they came home one day and found all their things in plastic bags, on the curb because the person hadn't paid them and they never got any of the notices. The office didn't know that they were living there. They thought it was the other person. So there are some things like that in this housing guide, some tips that's like, oh, I never even thought about that. So, and we narrowly avoid scams every year. So be careful. And if there's anything weird, reach out to us, because we do look, we make phone calls. There's ways, the property valuation sites, that kind of thing. I've done a lot of detective work on behalf of students when they, received a lease that looked very unusual, and I checked it out and was able to actually find the real owner, those kinds of things. And these are real. We did have a student end up, on the sidewalk in Los Angeles with her luggage, and she thought she had housing, but she didn't. So these are things that happen. It's just the world we live in, and those scammers are good. It's not that you're not smart. They are very good. They use real websites. They use real names of staff that's on those websites. So they're very good about it. But anyway, so read that housing guide. And then think about, when you're creating your budget, you can't eat out every meal, so be realistic about this. You're going to need to have some fruit and some granola bars maybe, or things like that, yogurts, whatever. And then, eat out. Sometimes we definitely want you to do that. And then what kind of transportation will you use? If you're using public transportation, do check your routes and everything and look for those monthly passes. The monthly passes are usually cheaper than the daily ones by quite a lot. So look for those. And then think about your cash flow, knowing that you're going to, if you turn in your proposal and all the approvals are done by the deadline, which was April 13th, then you should have your money by the end of April. Then you can make your airline tickets. You can buy those. You can make your reservations for housing, that sort of thing. So keep in mind your cash flow when you are thinking of a start date. If you know you'll get your money by around the end of April, you probably can't start May 5th because you can't, unless you have the money to reserve your housing or you're living at home or something like that. You want to think about that. Also, it's a little bit easier if you do your internship during the months of June and July. That's 9 weeks usually, and most of the time their housing is easier to obtain for just the months of June and July, because there's a lot of college students that go away or want to sublease or things like that during that time. And if you're staying at a college or university, that's usually the time frame during which their housing is available. So, okay, don't miss this deadline. It's April 13th, but if you can get it in sooner, that's to your advantage, because we are going to start doing disbursements of funds on April 1st. So you can get it earlier if you get your offer earlier and get everything done. Now, if you're one of those people who gets a late offer, and we do know that employers do this, they don't operate on our schedule necessarily, or maybe you were on a waiting list and your name came up, we still want you to be able to do it if you can. So late offers will be considered up through the last day of classes, okay? That'll give you time during finals week for everybody to get the approvals done. But keep in mind, if that's the case, your funding is going to be delayed. So this should not be the kind of situation where, you need to buy a plane ticket or something, or you'll have to, we can help you figure that out if it is, but we will accept them up through the last day of classes, okay? Final details, just to remind you, attend that launch. You'll have to attend the launch party. We're going to register you. A copy of your proposal form and the agreement are going to be sent to the internship supervisor, just so you know that. It's for their documentation only. They don't have to do anything with it. They will have, your emergency contact information. They'll see what your learning objectives were, but this is, they don't have to sign it. They sometimes need to have this to document through their human resources department that you are enrolled in a class and that it's a learning experience, especially if they're not paying you. They have to document that. Then keep in mind, timesheet and both of those evaluations, the one that you do and the one that the employer does. So if you need help, let's look at the steps beyond Berea. I'm going to show you those. Whoops, wrong one. Let me go up. When you go to our website, Internship Students, under Internship Planning, here are the steps for planning and participating. You open that. Each of these things, the planning part is what you've been doing, identifying positions, getting your resume ready, that sort of thing. You'll see those. Then submission is where you're probably close to this now. Submit the applications, participate. This is where all the steps are. And so go right back to that when you have questions. If you have questions that aren't in there, that fall outside those, email internships@berea.edu, and you can ask a question there. You can always stop in and ask a question. Someone should be there that could be available, but not always, if you come during the lunch hour. But I still think most of the time, if you just stop in with a question, there's someone that could answer that for you. And if not, they'll take a message and get it to us. We do have meetings and that sort of thing. So if you wanted, you'd be better off to schedule an appointment, and you can do that via handshake. It's typically you cannot make appointments within a 24-hour period. Like you can't make them the same day. If you should need that for some reason, or just want to check and say, hey, is it possible? You can call Nicole at 985-3656, and she can let you know if anybody's got availability that day. We can meet with you virtually or in person, and so you can let us know which way works best for you.